So how did America get built, ladies and gentlemen? Well, let's listen to Obama's explanation. Cut 7, go.
And yet, we keep on having the same argument with folks who don't seem to understand how it is that America got built. And let me just say, I mean, the folks that we have political arguments with, they're Americans who love their country.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah. Democrats, Republicans, Independents, everybody, we all love this country. But
Stop.
There is...
If you want to fundamentally transform this country, I've asked this question scores and scores of times since he was elected president. If you want to fundamentally transform this country, how can you love it? I mean, if you fundamentally reject it, right? If you fundamentally want to transform it. There's something horribly wrong with a country if you want to fundamentally transform it. Am I right? Go ahead, Mr. Producer.
A fundamental difference in how we think we move this country forward. These folks, they keep telling us that if we just weaken regulations that keep our air or our water clean or protect our consumers, if we would just convert these investments that we're making through our government in education and research and health care, if we just turn those into tax cuts, especially for the wealthy, then somehow the economy is going to grow stronger.
So in other words, we need to spend more money on his green energy disasters. In other words, we need to tax the proletariat more to give money to his bourgeois bundlers. You communists out there, you kind of understand better what I'm explaining now? Obama acts like he hasn't been president for over 3 years. Obama acts like that he didn't control the Congress for 2 years. Now, exactly which regulations do you and I oppose that would make water dirty? Which one is it? Which regulation is that? Which regulation is it that you and I oppose that would make our air cleaner? We're not even talking about global warming here now, that fraud. No, we're talking about cleaner. Which regulation is that one? Of the 80 to 90,000 pages and regulations they spit out every year in the Federal Register. I'm just curious. What do all those other regulations do? Mr. President, you want to explain them to us? You don't even know. These investments, they call them investments. So now Clinton starts, Bill Clinton, with the massive, bloated government bureaucracy, taking money from local communities, laundering it through the federal bureaucracy to make sure we pay bureaucrats twice as much as in the private sector, take care of their pensions and their medical care, and then we give it back to the same communities, and somehow that's an investment in education. He talks about investments in health care. You and I pay for most of our health care, ladies and gentlemen. What investment is Obama talking about? It's the private sector that does these things. Yes, there are government labs, there are government this and that and the other thing, but the vast majority of it is the private sector. You wouldn't have a NASA without the private sector. You couldn't have a United States military without the private sector. If we just turn those into tax cuts, is somebody proposing to turn what into what? What are you talking about, Mark? Listen, there's no connection in this country anymore between taxes and spending by the federal government. Because the federal government spends so much. The magnitude of the yearly deficit, the magnitude of the overall debt is so massive. There's not enough money in our society if we raided every bank account, every mutual fund, if we sold off every home and automobile, if we took your kids' college savings. No matter what, there's not enough money to pay for this government. Right now, the on-budget debt is over 100% of all the economic wealth that's created each year. Well, Mark, you said selling off assets. I'm not done. the unfunded entitlements. This is even before we got to Obamacare. Over $100 trillion. Meaning that money can never be paid off. Ever. Ever. He seems to think the Buffett rule, which would raise about $4 to $5 billion a year, as I found out. I went back and got the accurate number. $4 to $5 billion a year would somehow address the debt. This is what he used to say. Now he says, no, it won't address the debt because we're on to him. It's just fairer. What's fairer? Taking another $5 billion from people? That's fairer? How is that fairer? Where's that going to wind up? Subsidizing someone? Maybe giving some more money to a Solyndra bundler? They blew billions of dollars on these phony solar plants and phony windmill whatever they are. And he's talking about it's fair to take another $5 billion a year out of the private sector? Ladies and gentlemen, when are we going to hold the government accountable for its spending? Whether it's a Solyndra, whether it's an entitlement, whether it's waste, fraud, and abuse, when are we going to hold the government responsible? Before we start these games with the class warfare and the government needs more money. There's no connection between the taxes that they collect anymore, the revenue, and their spending. If there wasn't another penny in revenue in this government, they would spend another $4 trillion on an annual budget. But you're smart. You know this. Who does he think he's fooling? Let's go to cut 10, Mr. Producer, because I can't stand playing a lot of these. It's my waterboarding segment of the program, but it's painful. I know it's painful, folks. We got to deal with it. Cut 10, go.
And so we've got to choose which direction we want this country to go. Do we want to keep giving those tax breaks to folks like me who don't need them?
All right, stop. Any politician who says they get a tax break that they don't need, we should compel to pay more taxes. This little flip line that they give, they have very careful accountants who are looking for deductions for them and all the rest. Mr. President, if you don't need your deduction, then don't take it. Then pay more. After all, you really should, because you and your wife, you spend a hell of a lot of our money. You're getting a lot of freebies, you know what I mean? There's corporate welfare. There's government welfare. All these government types living off of you and me, ladies and gentlemen. And, of course, they're doing it for our own good and the good of our children. But even he's flying down to Florida giving this speech. They don't even consider this a campaign speech. You and I are paying for most of this. Tax breaks, that's flat out government welfare that we're handing out. Go ahead, Mr. Producer.
Give them to Warren Buffett. He definitely doesn't need them. Or Bill Gates. He's already said, I don't need them.
All right, stop. There really should be a law that if you announce more than 3 times that you don't need your tax cuts or you want to pay higher taxes, that you should be compelled to pay them. That'll put an end to these big mouths real fast. Here we have Warren Buffett. We want the Buffett rule, they say. Well, what is this Buffett rule in practice? Well, this is fascinating to me. November 19, 2001, Wall Street Journal. NetJets, a unit of Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway, Inc., this week, sued the IRS over what it called an illegal $643 million tax assessment. I thought Buffett didn't need all these taxes. That is, tax cuts and tax breaks and whatever you want to call them. The IRS had determined that NetJet, now this is really cool because now we're getting into executive jets. So we really hate corporate jets, right? Well, what is NetJets? In essence, it's jets for all kinds of people, but mostly corporate execs. Ooh. Is that the Buffett rule too, NetJets? So they sue the IRS and say, wait, we don't owe $643 million your tax assessment. NetJets, a division of billionaire Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway, failed to collect a ticket tax from customers, the IRS claims. But NetJets argued in the lawsuit filed in federal court that the tax was meant to be paid only by commercial or charter passengers. NetJets, in contrast, primarily sells or leases shares in planes to wealthy flyers. It calls its clients owners of a fraction of a plane. Wow. And Obama keeps waving around the Buffett flag. Yeah, even Warren Buffett says, I don't want to pay my taxes. Hello, media, you out there? Wake the hell up. And then there's this. Last week, the IRS sued Warren Buffett. Or at least his company. Uncle Sam is suing Warren Buffett's company over taxes. Yes, taxes. The U.S. government, in a little-followed case, the one I just talked about, filed a lawsuit this month against a unit of Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway, seeking $366 million in taxes and penalties. The Berkshire division at the center of the suit is NetJets, the private aircraft company that caters to the nation's wealthiest, the people Buffett says should pay more in taxes. So let me get this straight. Obama's down there in Florida, flew on our 747. We are paying for the 747 and every damn thing connected to it, right? So he flies down there, and he says he wants to help us by screwing the rich. How does that help us? We have no idea, but that's what he wants, okay? He talks about the Buffett rule, and the Senate Democrats are going to vote on the Buffett rule, where millionaires and billionaires should pay more money. But Buffett himself, who he says he doesn't need all these deductions and he can pay more taxes, in reality won't do it, at least not with his investment, NetJets. And then to make it even more hilarious, NetJets caters to what? Wealthy people. Corporate jets, wealthy people. And the IRS says they owe over $300 million. So what's the Buffett rule exactly? Is it like the GE rule, where the other year they didn't pay any corporate income taxes whatsoever? Jeff Immelt, Obama's buddy. You Romney people, if you can't ram this stuff down their throats, hopeless. I have an idea for you Romney people, your handlers, funders, fundraisers. Just pretend Obama's a conservative Republican. Then you'll really want to screw him.